Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to prepare budgets. First, let's define what a budget is. A budget is a quantitative statement. The word quantitative simply means we have to answer the question of how much. How much profit, how many volumes in terms of the number of units to produce. So it answers how much. If you don't know how much, then you cannot be able to prepare a budget. Number two, a budget must be for a specified period. You cannot budget forever unless you are using a continuous budgeting. So what is a budgeting? Budgeting is a process of preparing a budget. So the learning outcomes of this topic is to learn how to prepare flexible budget, master budget, and cash budget. So we will be able to know how to prepare these three budgets. Why do we budget? These are 6 reasons why we budget. Number 1, to plan, to coordinate, to communicate our vision, to motivate, to control, and to evaluate. How do we prepare budget? First, you must have a budget committee. This is a group of people from different departments who are going to make sure that each budget is brought in line with what the company wants to achieve. And then you must decide for how long, the period. You must first have guidelines. How do we prepare budgets? So that individual budgets should be able to form part of the master budget of the company. No one must prepare budget using each department guidelines. Budget proposal from each department must be made, submitted to budget committee for approval. Budget negotiations, review, approval, and revision. This is one last stage of preparing a budget. Master budget, this is the first budget that we are going to look. Means all departmental budgets being compressed into one document which communicates the mission of the entire organization. The master budget include the following budgets: sales budgets, production budget, direct material purchases budget, direct labor budget, manufacturing and non-manufacturing overheads budget. How do we prepare a sales budget? Estimated sales volume multiplied by selling price per unit. These two gives you a sales budget. Second budget in line is our production budget. Number 1, you have to identify your estimated sales volume at your closing inventory. Then it gives you units required. You less your opening, then you get your production requirements. If you know your production requirements, then you'll know how many materials to buy. Direct materials purchases budget to be this one. First, from the production budget, we have to identify how many units to produce, multiply by requirements per unit. For example, 5 kilograms per unit, 3 liters per unit. Those are requirements per unit, which means you must convert the number of units to produce into number of materials to buy. That's what we are doing here. Production volume, convert it into material requirements. How do we do it? You multiply production volume by requirements per unit. You ask yourself how many materials are required per unit. 5 liter, you multiply by number of units to produce, then it gives you material required for production. Then you add closing, then you less close opening, then you get purchases that must be made. Then purchases multiplied by rent per kilogram or cost per liter gives you then the amount of materials that must be purchased. Number 3 is our direct labor budget. Then here we have to determine the amount of time required per unit, then multiply it by rate per unit or per rate per hour, then you'll get direct labor budget. So production requirement from stage 2 multiply by rate per hour or rate per unit, then it gives you total direct labor hours required. Then you multiply by rate per hour, then you get direct labor cost budget. Time required, this is how you calculate the time required. For example, 1 hour is equals to 60 minutes. So you have to be able to know how many minutes goes into 1 hour, how many minutes are required per unit before you can work it out. Then overhead budget can either be fixed or variable, manufacturing or non-manufacturing. So this is what you must do first. Identify your manufacturing from your non-manufacturing, reclassify them as to whether they are fixed or variable. Then the second budget is our cash budget. Here we are talking about collection of debtors and payments of our creditors. The difference between that will be our net surplus or deficit. So you have to identify your opening balance, how much will be collected. Add the two, you get total receipts. Then the second part of the budget is payments to creditors and all other expenses paid in cash. Any payment which is not in cash is not part of our cash budget. Any receipt that is not in the form of cash is not part of our cash budget. So in budget, you only have your payments and receipt in cash. Remember that non-cash items like your depreciation and research and development costs should not be included in your cash budget. So if your receipts are more than your creditors or credits, then you get net surplus. If your creditors are more than what you receive from your debtors, then you have a deficit. Then this is how you prepare a cash budget. Identify these items under receipts and under payments. Number 1, opening balance, cash sales if it's there, cash receipt from customers according to collection policy. Will be given a collection policy. Dividends received, loans or bank overdraft. The second part, cash paid to creditors, salaries and wages, administrative expenses, buying of assets, dividends paid, and other expenses. So these are the two sections. Cash received from customers and paid to creditors. This is how we calculate. This is what we mean by collection or payment policy. This is how you record. The purpose here is to make sure that all these monies are under relevant periods. And the last budget is our flexible budget, where you are going to prepare flexible budget, compare it with your actuals, and determine your variances. And when preparing a flexible budget, it is important that you identify your variables, your fixed, and your mixed. The mixed must also be separated into fixed and variable using high-low method.